Hey friends, welcome to another origami tutorial, and today we are making a pretty crazy signature. So it is a combination of the dragon plate armors with my dragon head. Now this is the one-headed dragon, this is the same as the two-headed dragon, and this is the most advanced version so far of the DPA series. But essentially it's combining the head onto the shoulders of the armor. And I think it's going to be pretty cool, but it's going to be very challenging. So let me make sure you're ready to go. And today's video is brought to you by me with the OBB membership. Meet Kai, who just folded Satoshi Kamiya's Region 2.1, but like many of you, struggled to solve certain parts like the head and couldn't find anywhere for help. That is until he joined OBB membership, where he got a direct line of help from me and I pointed him in the right direction to finish. Just look how happy he is and how cool that region turned out. I've been responding to every comment for years, but the OBB membership lets me help with more specific origami questions. You can even get help from other talented OBB members, some who are award-winning origami designers. Even more benefits await, such as exclusive crease patterns, behind-the-scenes content, and diagram testing. Ready to tackle your own origami goals? Click the join button below and become a member today. Now, the first thing you might notice is that my paper is already pre-creased. And I actually made a tutorial video that is before this video, so I'll link it below, and it details all the stuff that you need to get ready before you fold this tutorial. So part of that is pre-creasing. It has the link of the website where I have the pre-creasing crease patterns and the full crease patterns, as well as the helpful videos that will assist you in folding and collapsing, and the ones that we're going to refer to a lot while we do this. So I've made tutorials for the two-headed dragon and the base assassin. You need to have done both of those, or at least have watched them before you try this. And as for people asking in the comments, I can foresee it. If you have not done those, don't do this one yet, right? Because you're going to get confused. You're going to hit a spot where I refer to the video. So go ahead, practice that first, and it'll make this tutorial possible. The next thing we're going to talk about is paper. So I am using an 80 centimeter paper for this tutorial. I think the minimum you can go is like 65 centimeters, but even at that size, I don't think it'll look very good. You can already see that this is the creasing for the head of the dragon, which will divide even further for the teeth. So it's going to still be pretty small. Make it easy on yourself. Make a large paper. I've made tutorials and a whole ultimate paper guide to help you make large papers. So go watch that before complaining in the comments or asking me some ridiculous recommendation, which I'm already saying no in the video. So just don't ask, just watch the video, learn, get your paper ready, and we'll have a good time folding this tutorial. And with that all out of the way, and with you ready to fold the tutorial, let me give you just a few more things that we need to do before we start collapsing. So we have our pre-creasing done, except for a few things. And let me pull up the crease pattern. And this is just because I want to show this myself, and this will help you a little bit. The first thing we have to do is to remember to pre-crease these little diamonds. So in the original pre-crease crease pattern, we just have this empty space for the heads. If you haven't done so yet, you now want to divide the grid one more time so that we have these divisions, and then complete the pre-creasing for the ridges shown here. So go ahead and do that. The other thing you need to do is fold these diamonds. So these are the level shifters. I'll zoom in. That initially translate, the grid size into the head grid size. I'll show you what these look like just to be clear. So if we go ahead and take a look. So let me show you a quick example of those diamonds, right? I have the pre-creasing done already. I have the grid done. We're going to find where the grid is. And if you notice, I flipped over my paper. So right now the edge is a valley fold. And that way, when I pre-crease a mountain fold, the diamond will be valley fold in the order that the crease pattern shows. It just makes it a lot easier to collapse. But you want to check on your crease pattern and find out exactly where the diamond should be, which I'm looking at a crease pattern. It should start right here on the corner. And I'm just going to pinch this diamond in. It's 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. And the important thing is just to make sure you're creasing it in the right area. So in this case, our first one starts just 1 unit up from the edge. Now that that one's complete, I'll go 2 units up and then start my next one. So like this. And there are quite a lot of these. So you want to make sure you're starting it correctly, so you don't mess up a whole bunch and have to redo it. But I'm going to let you go ahead and finish all of them. I'm going to finish them on mine. And we're going to show the one other pre-creasing that we're going to do before collapsing. All right, so I've zoomed out in the crease pattern, and what we want to pre-crease is in the torso area. So currently you should have these structures done. We're going to use that as reference. But if I look at the full crease pattern, we have the pleat divisions over here. And if you've done the original tutorial, you would have done this in part of the sequence. We're going to make sure this is pre-creased, but we just need this half division pre-creased and this one pre-creased. So let's start with the bottom valley fold. And it's best to do this as a valley fold, just to keep things easier. So what we want to do is find that pre-crease or that grid line. The way we do that is you can see how over here we've got this structure and we have this mountain fold going across. So let's look for that on our paper. I am looking for it. I find it to be right here. And you might not be able to see it, but I found it right here. And then here's that mountain fold like this, right? And now what I want to do is add a valley fold underneath it. So I'm just going to mountain fold to divide like that. And it doesn't stretch like all the way across, but you want to make sure it at least stretches to where, you know, it should terminate. So just like this. And as long as it's up to here, we have some more reference points of pre-creasing diamonds over here and over here. So that's one of them. Now we need to do the mountain fold that happens to be just 1 unit up. So if I am looking at what we just folded, we folded along this mountain fold. 1 unit up is a valley fold. And then the half division is a mountain. So there's a few ways you could do that. You could fold it as a mountain or a valley fold first, and then invert the crease, or you could flip over the paper and just do it correctly the first time. In order so I don't have to flip over the paper, I'm just going to pre-crease it as a valley fold using this crease and folding to the valley fold like this. And then I will invert the crease because I think it's a little bit easier. At least it's more convenient to show while I am on camera. So pre-crease from here to here. All right, so that's the pleat division. And then now I just have to invert it. So I'm going to run my finger underneath and pinch it to turn it into a mountain fold. All right, and now that we have those pre-creases done, we are ready to collapse this crazy design. Let's get to it. All right, so we are ready to begin the collapse, and just like the assassin tutorial, we are going to start it the same way, which is folding the pleats for the center torso armor. Now you can see I've already kind of have the pleats set just so I can remember where they are, but I've also pointed them out in the crease pattern. So if we look at the crease pattern here, right, we can see there's this long mountain fold and valley fold that connects with like these ridges here. So this one's a big mountain. This is a big valley. And we got one more up here, mountain up here, valley over here. And they're, you can find it with the crease pattern right here. But in our scenario, we are going to start by folding through the whole model just to keep it easy, but especially in the middle. All right, so I have it here. I'm folding along the grid. I have the next grid line up here and another grid line here. And again, if this is confusing you, you can go back and watch the assassin tutorial, and I show this exact same thing. All right, so from here, next what we're going to do is these tiny little diamonds over here. And it's not something we've pre-creased, but it is along the grid. And what you want to do actually is pay attention to where or which grid unit it's on, because we're going to be pleating up the middle, and we just need to know where those are, and it'll help us out. Again, I showed this in like much more detail in the original tutorial, so if you need to see that, go watch that. But otherwise, what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to mark it with a pen, just because these will be so inside of the model that even if you mark it, you won't really see it. And it is happening on this pleat here. So I'm going to open up my creases a little bit. And what I'm looking for is the pre-crease. I'm going to hover it with my mouse. The pre-crease that is right here. So this V, which I believe we pre-creased this diamond, so it'll be next to the diamond. And if we go down to where the pleat is, that's where we want to mark. So I'm going to look at my paper. I'm looking for that V, which is here. Let's find the diamond, which is here, right? So top of the diamond across 2. Yep, we have the V, and then going down to where this should be, right? I'm just going to put a little dot at where these should go. So we have a lower division, which we pleated in our pre-creasing. We like literally just did that. And then we have the upper one, which will be right here and right here. All right, so I'm just marking those. Now I'm gonna find it on the other side. So here's our diamond. We cross over 2, we find a V. It's hard to see, but I found it here. I'm gonna scoot the crease pattern over. Basically, I found this right here. Now I'm gonna go down 1, 2, 3, or basically until I see my pre-creases here. Mark it with little dots. That's the lower one, and then the upper one is one up and to the left like this. Or technically it is a little higher, I think. Yeah, like that. Okay. So I have where it's located. Add a little dot here. I think that's actually where the crease starts. So now what we can do is we can fold back our pleats like we just did. Right, like this. And now what we're going to do is, just like in the original Assassin tutorial, we're going to valley fold along this half unit. So the crease pattern, it's this bottom half unit. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to valley fold this down, but it's not like you're folding in half. You want the top part to pop up, and you'll feel like that's the part that's down. You'll see this next pre-crease of the pleat we had here, and that's going to fold like this. So now our pattern, and this is in the very center of the paper, is like this. Once we have this in place, we actually want to start pleating from the center along our grid lines. So like this is the very center one. One to the left is a mountain. So we're going to fold a mountain through the whole vertical side, like that. And then the next is valley. And we want to do this all the way up to where we just marked those little dots. So basically, I think it's like 2 sets of pleats. And I guess you don't have to go all the way to the end, but it makes it a lot easier if you do. You kind of just need middle. Eventually we are actually going to be pleating vertically through everything, so might as well do it now. And if you need clips to hold it in place, then you can do so. Okay, so this next one is where the first dot is, and that is going to be our first transition unit, like here. Now, in order to let this transition unit complete, we actually have to look on the other side very carefully. I'm holding it closed, and on the other side, you can actually still see the mark of our pen here. From the other side, this pleat needs to lie flat. You can see how it's naturally doing it on the far side. But in order for it to lay flat, we have to close the pleat, which will make this part of the paper swivel. So I'm going to start the pleat like this. And the inside of the paper is going to swivel. Let's see if you can see that closely. Here's the bottom of that pleat, and as I close it, that paper is swiveling forward, and I want it clean, so I'm prioritizing the cleanliness of the pleats here. There we go, like that. And now this pleat is collapsed like this, but we also have to flip it over. Back to the original side. We have one more, this exact same maneuver, but on this side. You can see it started on its own here, and that's where our other dot is. We just need to make sure that swivel is also clean. And along the pleat, like this. Now you can see it just sat in there. And if it's not super clean, it's okay. You just don't want the whole layer to be outside. Like basically you just want this pleat to line back up like this. You can see that when we close these pleats, it's a seamless transition. So we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm actually going to rotate the paper 45 degrees. So it's a little bit more manageable for us to fold these pleats. Okay, so we have the small pleats here. Again, we're going to start by doing mountain valley folds, and my layer is stuck here. There you go. Now on the original Assassin, this is way easier because the paper is a lot smaller and the grid size is smaller. What makes this just slightly more challenging is there's just so much more paper to manipulate. But as long as you are taking care of following the grids and all these pleats, you'll be okay. So just like before, start off with those pleats. Now we're getting to where we have our first transition. And if you kind of understand what's going on, you don't necessarily need to flip the paper first. If you don't know what's going on, then you should do exactly what we just did. But from here, it kind of naturally will form as we fold the pleats. So you can kind of feel it from the other side, and then double check it. So for now, I'm just going to focus on collapsing these pleats, and I can actually feel the paper transitioning itself. And that way, for the one on the top, I can just prioritize this transition. Comes across here, and we got that one more pleat. Like this. There we go. And it is not quite clean in here yet, so I'm going to fix it up a little bit and, you know, I guess flip it over to the other side just to make sure it's clean. You know, maybe it is better just to take your time and get it right the first time. So there's our transition right in there. Fold that down. Fold it with the rest of the pleats. Flip the paper back over. And now we can do this last one here. And I'm going to try to make it a little bit cleaner. Just like that. All right. That is looking good. And now what we are able to do is, with this out of the way, I'm going to rotate it back into like the crease pattern. What we're going to do now is fold this entire thing into a vertical pleated stick. This is pretty common for all of my tutorials, but just keep folding these pleats up. And this is the center. If you lose track of the center, you want to look at the bottom, and at the bottom you'll see where a lot of creases meet in an X. And also, once you have everything pleated up, it'll feel like there's an even amount of layers on each side. So go ahead and keep pleating until you're all done. And we're going to come back when I've pleated it. And we're back with the folded stick, and this area is where we have those pleats that we just did. And I used some small clips just to keep it tidy for now. With this many layers, I recommend it. All right, so we are going to continue. Now, it's a little hard to see the pleats, but make sure you can find it. And I'm actually going to undo one side of my pleats. And that's because we are going to look for the area that's going to transition out these pleats. And we're going to do that first just to get out of the way. And it'll fold nicely from there. So let me quickly pop up Origami. All right, so we are going to look for this area over here. And while it does translate into the arms over here, what we're going to do is imagine that there's a mountain fold right there. And I'll show you how to fold this. You don't have to pre-crease this, but it's going to make it a lot more manageable. Yeah, you'll see. But the important part is to first find where that is. Now we have this crazy transition stuff that we recently just did. It shouldn't be too far past it. So I can start to see the pre-creases right here. I think that's exactly where it is. And I'm just going to open up that area a little bit. Let's start from the bottom. Now I'm actually going to unfold this pleat, not all the way, just so I can start to see this crease. Now these creases will be mountain fold. And it can be a little bit tricky to get these fully collapsed because of how the pleats are organized, but let's try to remember that those are mountain fold as we go. So there's the first one, and then it goes up and then it goes outwards. So now we have to unfold this guy a little bit. And part of what makes this tricky is the pleats. Some of the pleats will, on the left side over here, will stay collapsed while the right side won't. All right, there we have this side, and let's keep following it up. All right, so I have them set as mountain folds. It goes up to here. And we have found this one now, which is this guy up here. And again, we are going to imagine a flap that just reaches down to the bottom like this. Now, to do that, now that I've found all of these, I want to undo the pleats on this side towards the edge. So unfold these pleats. But then I am going to refold our grid lines, which we used to turn this into a stick. So I'm refolding the grid lines, but without the pleats running through it. So you see that, how the pleats are no longer running through, and I can just very easily collapse this back up. And you're going to do this almost all the way to the structure that we had just found over here. Not all the way, but almost. And basically where we're going to go is if I trace this down 2 units and then trace this up 3 units, right there, that's where we're going to stop. And I can see this crease right here, which will be a valley fold. And basically where we are on the crease pattern, we are right where my mouse is. And again, we're going to be adding this so it makes a flap. And that's why we're stopping here. And essentially all we want to do is follow this grid line. This will be a mountain. I had to invert this crease, you might too, depending on your grid. And once that's a mountain, we can pinch this as the start of our flap. And we are going to make basically a 3 unit long flap over here. Like this. And you can see how it starts to collapse down. And on this side, we're going to do the exact same thing. And this will give us good direction for collapsing the next part. Over here, very gently. Now, I'm going to rotate this so we can see a little bit better. And get all this paper out of the way. All right, so now we kind of have to deal with this area. Now, the key thing to crease this is you can see where we have this valley fold. We have the rest of the pre-creases here. And in order for it to collapse nicely, right, so this is where part of it will collapse. You want to hold this section together. And once this is together, we can make sure this bottom pleat tucks down nicely like this. And now I can like valley fold this whole arrangement down. So I'm pinching right here and it feels like it's folding flat. And I can even start to refold the creases down here. But we also have to do this top side. All right, I adjusted the lighting so it's a little bit easier to see. But now we have to do the top side, and the top side is pretty much the exact same. We are folding along this area, collapsing as much as we can, get this valley fold down here, and then hold it together. But this time, instead of folding down, we're folding the pleat up like this. And on mine, I can feel it, and on yours, you should be able to feel where that crease wants to go. And it'll fit in like so. Now the top area still needs to be done, so it's not exactly super good yet, but we have that same sequence one more time towards the top. It's just that in this area, we also have this ridge coming down this way. So there's quite a lot going on at once, but we're gonna take the same approach of just lining this up as much as we can together. And get this collapsed. And this is here. This is mountain fold. There we go. So I had to get my grid lines in order here, just like the crease pattern. Now we can do the same thing where we're collapsing it together inside. We can fold this pleat upwards. And now we just have this point over here to deal with. And in this case, we're squeezing it together, folding the pleat down, and collapsing just like that. And what we're left with is this 3-unit flap, which again isn't really on the crease pattern, but we're going to leave it like that. And then we're going to convert it into the rest of the arm later. All right, so we've done that on this side, and you might have guessed, we now have to do it on the other side. It is exactly the same, so I'm not going to show it again. I think we spent enough time on that, but you just need to find where it starts. So remember, we have that transition, and then we're gonna look over across. Once we find our creases here, then we can start unfolding the pleats behind it, and then refolding the grid that turns it into a stick until we start hitting that structure that forms the 3-unit flat. And then we formed a 3-unit flat and get the rest of the claps. So go ahead, work on this side. We're going to come back when I finish it. All right, so we have finished both sides. They're the exact same. This 3-unit flat, torso right over here. And it is looking pretty good. So the next thing we are going to do is actually start on the legs. So if we take a look at the crease pattern, the legs are very much isolated from the rest of the body. So we'll get those out of the way. And in the meantime, it'll warm us up for starting to do these, which is the shared, motif through this armor. If you folded the assassin, which you should have, you should remember this. These are actually going to be an easier variant because it's more spread out, I think. But let's go ahead and start with that. So we're going to start with one leg. And in order to collapse this, we are actually going to be doing like from the center and the leg at the same time. But we're going to be collapsing it like this to start, just using the ridges that we pre-creased. So we're not going to worry about the big level shifter thing yet. We'll add that in after we collapse this. That way we can also pre-crease things for some of those divisions that create the spikes. So this should be pretty straightforward. We're going to just start off at the bottom of the leg. I have the center right here. And so we're also going to refer to that as we collapse down. So I like to just do this like one big ally stretch and go all the way through, especially since there's nothing too tricky about this collapse. So let's get started, just starting from the bottom edge and going upwards. Like this. Little flap right here. Now one thing I like to do, which you see, is whenever in the center we have a flap, I actually like to keep the opposite side all bunched up in its layers. And then whenever there's something like a flap that's created here, I will just fold through these like this to keep it intact. That way it can be like, kind of out of the way. We'll use a clip just to hold that in place as we keep going. And that'll make it so when we do the other leg, it'll be like really easy to collapse. So like same thing here. All right, that way we don't have to parachute anything. It all kind of stays flat as we're collapsing. Pretty simple. I am literally just following my creases and referring to the crease pattern that I have on screen. As I'm going up, we've got this first, leg armor flap here. I think sometimes if you're doing this quickly, you might accidentally fold something that doesn't exist. So at the end, after we do this, we'll count all of our flaps and just make sure that we fold it along the correct pre-creases. That way we don't get confused later, but ultimately there's really not that much that can go wrong. I think we're doing okay. Here we have our first sequence of the new knee armor section that I've added. And this should allow us to define the knee a lot more. One of the feedbacks from the original design I got from some high-level origami designers is that there was no knee definition. Now that was partly a shaping issue, but this will make it a little bit easier because now it's structural. I think it'll look pretty cool. I don't exactly know the shaping yet, but there's a lot of room to do some fun shaping with it. So that's exciting. And over here we have our other area that's going to turn into those spikes. Now I need to look towards the center a little bit more. I believe we have another flap over here, like this. Right, just like that. And that lets us keep collapsing. And we are almost done with this leg. Now it shoots out to the side here a little bit. So don't forget about that. It goes up to here. And this will add a flap to the side. Looks like this. A little bit easier if we complete the center area. So let's keep collapsing along there. We have a smaller flap here. That goes into a slightly larger one. And this is why I like to keep all of these pleats together. Makes it a bit easier to manage. Still a little bit fidgety. But there you go. I think we got this side collapsed. I'm going to move my clip so it's out of the way. As you can see, there is quite a lot going on. Let's get this 2-unit flap out to the side. And now I'm going to rotate the model and we just have like a 2-unit flap here, which will go through quite a lot of layers. So we got to be careful like this. And then got this last portion here, which it does get a little tricky. There is a like little extra 1-unit flap, which will be used to transform one of the extra pleats when we spread it out. But for now, we don't have that exactly folded, so it's not really going to want to obey, but that's kind of okay. We can just kind of push it up into this way for now, and it's going to push basically into one of these flaps up here. But just try to get it along the creases, and it'll make sense once we fold out the details for those legs. But that is pretty much it for one side. As you can see, that is quite a lot for the leg, especially near the hip, just because we have this extra 3-unit flap that we added. So for now, I'm actually just going to keep that 3-unit flap folded upwards. This is the one that we created from the back. So we're going to keep it folded upwards, maybe add a clip to hold it in place, just so it's out of the way for us. Here's one leg. Now I'm going to leave you to it to do the other one. And we are back with both legs completed. And so we have the legs on this end, and the center part, which is for the front of the armor, is up here. And you can see we have this 1 unit flap. For now, that's pushing these flaps to point upwards. We got our back 3 unit flaps. So everything should be orientated like this. And you want to make sure that all these flaps we have present line up with each other. So you can kind of compare that it's the same on both sides, and generally you'll be good to go. So let's move on to the next part of the legs, which is we're starting to get some of those details like widening it out. And in particular, we're going to start with this squash over here. And in order to do this squash, we actually have to, like if this is looking on top of the model, we actually have to look on the inside of the model. So I'm going to take one leg, and what we're looking for is this ridge right here. So we've got this flap, and on this side of it, which is away from the corner, is where we're paying attention to. And what we want to do is just a simple spread sink or spread squash. So I'm opening up the layer like this. And as you can see, when I do that, I can start to push this down. Again, this is the exact same as the assassin. So if you get confused, go check that one out there. But when we squash it down, we get something that looks like this. And then what we're going to do is just close it back up. And because we've done this, it will enable us to actually unsync a layer to make it wider. So we've done that on the inside. Now we can look at the other side here. And this is, you can start to feel where that actually is. And what I want to do now is we're going to do an unsync on that layer. So in this layer, and essentially it is like if we're looking from the edge, it's not the first inlet, it's like the second one. We're going to pop it out, and you can kind of just push along where that spread sink was, and it's going to come out like this. I'm going to rotate the paper so we can see a little bit easier. All right, and now that we have that open, we want to continue that mountain fold all the way to the center. So it's going to come out for all of it. So we have to unfold a little bit over here, but you don't want to lose the structure. So just be mindful of where you're going, but you can kind of just follow this whole grid line to the center. And when you get to the center, it is also just going to be popping the interior out. And basically where we see we have the ridge lines being valleys, because we're unsyncing, they are now going to become mountain. Just like that. And it works very smoothly. Now, once we have that, we can recollapse the leg. Make sure we don't lose any of the structures we had collapsed. And it will make, or it will invert some creases along just that layer. So just be cautious that you have everything correct still. Just like this. And now our leg is wider, like that. All right, we have one more thing to do, which is actually very similar to what we just did. It's also an unsync. So what I'm going to do is now on the layer right next to it, which is this one, we're also going to unsync this in the same way. So while this was valley, it is now going to become mountain. And just like the unsync we did here, while these were all valley, it is now going to become mountain. Like this. And the one next to it, which before, I don't think was anything, but it's going to be valley. So it's like this. And right, so the one right next to it is valley. Essentially, we're doing that exact same thing all the way up to the top. So follow that crease. Let's move the paper all the way up. You can kind of like unfold most of it first. Find the area that needs to be popped out. Turn it into mountain. And then turn that whole grid line into mountain. And as you do that, make sure you have the valley fold for it on the next grid line, which you can also just line up the new edges together. Like that. And now we have basically two layers that have that widening right next to each other. And you might have guessed, but we are going to repeat this on the other side. All right, we now have our widened legs complete, and we are going to work on the pleat divisions for the top flap here and the very bottom one. So let's just choose the leg first. Let's stick with this leg because we've been doing it first. And what I want you to check, make sure you can hinge your flap pretty well. That means, you know, everything is relatively clean. And then after that, you are just going to fold it in half like this. And you want this to be a pretty strong crease. Unfold. And so now it's relatively folded in half. The bottom part might be a little bit less accurate, but we'll work with it. Now you're going to do the same thing with the very bottom flap right here. So make sure it's clean. I can already see that mine is a little bit stuck. There we go. So the cleaner the hinge is, the easier it's going to be to do this whole move. And same thing. Let's fold it in half, get a good crease. This one's a little bit thinner, so it should be a little bit easier. And I think we'll use the bottom one as our example because it is thinner. So it'll be easier to do. And let's move our crease pattern a little bit out of the way. Let's show the crease pattern, what's happening. So essentially what we're doing first is before we do all the diamonds, we're going to get these pleats set up in the right order on both of them. And then we can go ahead from there. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is open up our flap like this. And, or actually what we can do, at least on the small one, this might not work on the big one, but for the small one, we can separate it into one more step where now that we've creased it on both sides, we can squash fold this flap. So, right, we fold it in half. And next, I'm going to squash fold along this half unit. So it folds in half. So this, which was valley, will be mountain. The edges on both will be valley. And what you'll have to do is if you look inside of the leg, there is the structure that makes up the layer flap. In half here, it's going to fold a valley fold like that, a little bit inset. And you can start to see where the other creases are forming. And this happened when we pre-creased a little bit. But this will let us do that squash fold cleanly. So I like to start there, and then I start with the creases that we made. And it almost folds itself. Just like this. Now mine isn't super clean, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit cleaner. But this is not the end of this maneuver. This just gets it set up mainly for the structure on the inside, is why we're doing this. All right, so now that we've done this squash fold, we need to apply these pleats, but along the whole area of the top of the paper. So I'm going to open up the paper, right? This is our mountain fold up top. I'm opening it up here, a few of these layers up to where we have the internal structure for that squash fold. So that's all these crazy creases over here, and we can find that with just following our pleats. And from here, we're going to try to recreate our squash fold. So we can just follow basically the existing folds like this, and we might have to invert some of these creases. But I like to find it from the outside and then work it into the inside. Because once you have the outside done like this, you can start to refold the structure here, and that helps it to hold in place a little bit as you're working. And what's happening on the inside structure here should actually be mostly the same creases. It's just we've pulled out some of the layers. So internally, it looks something like this. There you go. And it's just now that all these creases are running along like that, it looks pretty clean. If yours isn't clean, basically you want these pleats to run as close to this valley fold over here as you can. And then ideally it should be some sort of swivel and squash on the inside. That doesn't have to be super clean, just as long as that's the structure, you're good to go. Right? Like this. But yeah, so that's the internal structure. You can see mine, it's not like super clean. I need these pleats to be like a little bit closer together. I'm going to fix that first before I do the next step. So just double check yours, make sure your pleats are pretty good, pretty even. They can slide around a little bit while folding. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, so we now need to do one more step, which is we have a pleat that basically faces down and one that faces up. We're going to move the top one so that they're cascading and facing down. Very similar to how the pleat structure is on the torso. So again, all we're really doing now is manipulating the top one. In order to do that, we once again have to open up the model a little bit. And essentially what this is an unsync, but the way we can think about it is if we valley fold this pleat forward like this, right? So it's valley folded forward. Now we've kind of have a hinge along this line, and we're going to close sync it down. Now I know close sync is kind of scary, but this one's like super easy because there's so much of an edge on the outside. So all we have to do is turn this valley fold into a mountain fold. And then the old mountain fold becomes a new valley fold. And it's just, you know, the pleats so far right here on the edge. And the only thing that's really close syncing is this guy right over here. Again, doesn't have to be super clean, but the cleaner you can get it, the better. I find this to be pretty easy, so you can get a pretty clean close sync up in there. And then just make sure the pleats are good to go and well aligned. Close up the model. Now you can see what we're working with here. Pretty good. On both sides of this layer. Just like that. All right, so we're going to do the exact same thing for this top flap. There's just more layers we actually have to open. But it's essentially the same thing. So I think we can get away with starting with the squash fold just to set the structure up on the inside. Remember, we're looking on the inside here. This one's facing the other way, so it's going to look a little bit different. It's actually like a mountain fold on this side, on the halfway mark. So I'm just opening up that a little bit to crease, and then I am going to do the squash fold like this along this pre-creases. Just like that. If your paper is too thick for this, don't worry about it. Just you're gonna open, as long as you get the structure on the inside set, just open it up and form the pleats like we just did. So we have that. Now we can open it up. There's a lot of layers here. All right, open this one up to where the crease is. And I think technically for this one, we don't have to go all the way if we don't want to. We just need to make sure it's past these top two layers that are thin, these widened layers. We can test that out right now, actually. I believe that's all we need to do. So it's going to be more similar to the first one in terms of how the layers are organized. This might be a little shortcut. Aesthetically, it shouldn't change too much, and I believe structurally it'll be okay too. There might just be one small change when we do the closed sink. I don't think it'll actually be also different. Okay, but for now, I'm just working on those pleats, getting them aligned on the outside, and then working on them on the inside. Just like that. I unfolded this part a little bit too far. Let's put it back. Okay, so I think this is good. I'm going to check on the underneath to make sure the pleats are clean. Yeah, they're looking okay. Let's put everything back. And if we collapse everything back, we still have the pleats good on this and on the internal one over here. That's pretty much all we need. The pleats could be a little bit cleaner along this edge, but we're about to close sink it, so I don't think that's going to matter too much here, but just for the sake of sanity, I'm going to fix it just a little bit better, a little bit cleaner before we move on. All right, so it's a little bit better. I think it's actually the front one that's a little bit too short. Back one is a little too long, but it's good to go. Now we're going to do that sink fold, right? Or that close sink. So we're going to valley fold the pleat forward. Just like the other one. And our close sink here, we can just straight sink this all the way through. You can also get it a little bit clean by adding a small reverse fold here first. But yeah, that's kind of extra, and we don't need to be clean on that section. You just need those pleats. So let's not overcomplicate it. Let's just worry about those pleats lining up. I'm gonna start on the edge. Work our way onto the inside. And then once we get to this area, it's not really a close sink at this point. I think you can just reverse fold the whole thing through. You might feel some resistance, but it's okay. You just call it a transition unit. You know? We'll keep it easy. You just shove it in there. Doesn't make a difference in this scenario. All right. And there we have it. We have our new set of pleats here. So we've got this one on the top, and then on the bottom, we got these two down here. All right, so we've done that. We actually need to do one more thing, which is the exact same. You know how we squash folded these pleats in half? We're going to do that squash fold again, but this time it's happening on this long layer here and going down to the bottom. And we're doing this after these horizontal pleats because that's just the order to do it in. But the principle is the same. Basically what we want to do is we're going to open this up and pre-crease by folding in half here. So I'm going to flip the paper over. It's a little bit easier for me to pre-crease it. Now it's a very long pre-crease. So, you know, just do it in portions. Try to keep the paper tight as you're folding that top layer in half. And you'll have to open up the pleats just a little bit to get space to pre-crease this properly. But again, we're trying to keep as much of the structure as possible. With this pre-crease. You don't want to like pull out any of the pleats if possible. All right. And with that pre-creased, what we're going to want to do is I find it easier to do a valley fold on this flap towards the edge, or in this case, towards the center of the legs first, because we haven't creased this direction before. And then after that, execute the squash fold. That way everything stays clean while we're doing the action. Okay, so that's it, valley folded. Now we can begin our squash fold. So I like to start from this side, and then if you need to, you can open up from underneath the paper just to start the pleat arrangement, or to get these pre-crease lines the right direction. All right, so now it's in the right direction. Fold it back, and you have this nice squash fold here. And we can continue that through all of these pleats and through the whole leg, which it's a very long leg. So take your time with it. Try to get this to be as clean as you can, because this is the one that's very visible. And we'll be using it to get the rest of the details for the legs later down the line. Okay, just like that. There we go. Oops, I accidentally spread the paper too much under the pleats. Don't do that. And let's just finish off this squash fold. It's like a very deconstructed squash fold because of how long it is. Just take your time with it. As long as you're aware of what creases need to go where. That's the important part. And once everything's lined up, so I pretty much have the whole leg lined up now. We just have to put everything back in the original structure. We're just following our old pre-creases and ridges for the basic structure of the leg. Now with all these pleats and details folded into it. There we go. And what we have now is a much more detailed leg than before. It's already looking pretty cool. All right, so from here, again, that was quite a lot. So we're just gonna do the exact same thing on the other leg. Take your time, and then we'll come back and add just a few more details. And we are back once again with the legs done, at least the pleats. And now what we're going to do is show how to do these details. Now I've shown this a lot in the assassin tutorial. So again, if you need to like a better, faster other version of watching that, might help you out, but we're going to zoom in here real quick. Basically, we're making little flaps with these areas and then spines on the other side. And a lot of that is done by making square twists. So another very common theme that I've done in the past, but we're going to start basically by just opening up the layer here. So I'm just going to pull very gently like this. And this is how you start a square twist. So now that we have this open, you can valley fold, to swivel this in, and you can start to see how it's already wanting to squash on the way in there. And you can kind of just lean into that by, there's a couple ways. You can like fold all of the layers to the side all at once just to open it up. But oftentimes it's a little stuck. So what I like to do is I just push it. And once it is approximately where I can see the square is lined up like this, so now it's pretty open. And then I can kind of manually adjust the creases so that they only take up 45-degree angles like this. Like that. And then it can collapse down if you twist it. Now, I think what I should have done is actually freed the whole layer first before going for the square twist. It's probably what I did in the other tutorial. So this side will be a lot easier now that have both sides free. And then on the bottom one, I'll show freeing the whole layer first and then trying to do the square twist. And it will probably feel like a square twist much more. This one you can actually see me able to twist the whole structure. Square twist is like a very basic tessellation technique, so you should be able to find it in a lot of places, not just my tutorials, but I showed this exact structure in my other tutorial. Okay, so let's just free the layers first. So what I'm going to do is, instead of worrying about the square twist, I'm just going to free the layer, and I can do that by lining up all these edges for now and letting it fold just down like that, fold flat. I go for the other side, same thing. So pulled across, basically pinching the intersection of all these mountain folds together and then letting it fold down. So now we have this individual flap right here, just on its own. And from here, now we can squash fold the center by doing a square twist. So like I'm valley folding to the right down here. I'm just sliding my thumb in here, valley folding the flap up all at the same time. So that square part opens, and then we can squash it into that square twist. Let it close. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but mine are very far from perfect. The thing I am most focused on is just that the corner of the flap is pointy. So if you can get it at least there, then that's relatively good enough. But again, it's not super perfect. It's okay because the way we're going to be shaping this kind of helps hide any imprecisions you might have, but still try if you can. Take some time. So I'm going to try to fix mine because I was a little bit off here. A lot of times you can just like massage it into place before creasing down like that. There you go, that looks good. Let's fix the other side just a little bit more. All right, it could be sharper, but again, we can fix that in shaping. Good enough. Now, the next part, before I have you do this 3 more times, we're going to work on these edges here. I'm going to show you the one on the very edge of the paper first because it's a little bit easier to visualize. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm going to use a pair of tweezers. You don't really need them. It's just easier if my hands aren't in the way. Is we are making these valley folds like this, almost as a pre-crease along the inside of this pleat. Right, just 90 degrees like that. Let's zoom in a little bit more. Let's do that on both of them. And then from here, we're going to swivel fold the inside layer. So this edge down, grabbing it, swivel fold it down. And we only want it to go across to the next grid unit, which is in this case here. We get a little spike here. Now the effect is really done when we do it on the next one, because when we swivel this down, you can really see how it turns it into a spike right there. Crease that. I'm going to make this a little bit cleaner. And if I flip this over, you can see we've got that spike right there. Right. So now on the other side, it's similar, but we don't have the luxury of being able to pre-crease that little area first. We actually have to spread the layers like this, very similar to the square twist. And we're also going to be pinching all the mountain folds together to make sure it's focused, just like we did before. And along the inside here is where that swivel is happening. So if we open this up a little bit, if you press down into the pocket like this, it basically mimics that first fold we did. And then we want to match that swivel fold at the same time, which again, only goes to the grid line like that. And as you close this back up, you want to press the other paper into the existing pleats, so you're not stretching the paper any more than it should be. And you essentially get the same effect on the other side. And you'll really see it when I do this next one. So very gently open. Line up the mountain folds or the pleats. My pleat unfolded a little bit too far. There you go. And the way we're folding is we're valley folding on the underside. So if you're looking at the top side, it's going to be mountain fold. That way it hides the crease. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'm folding that spike, right? Like that spike right there. That's a little bit too steep of an angle. Like that. And then I can push the paper inside of the pleat like this. Close it back up. And there we have the spike on the other side. So now you have more to do. So there's 2 on the bottom of the leg and then 2 above the knee. And then we have 4 on the other leg. So go ahead, finish those up. It doesn't take too long, but once you practice these, you'll get better and better at them. So you'll find them to get easier and easier, and we'll go from there. And we are back. We are done with both legs, and I just have some clips to keep it in place for now, but we can take those out and take a look. Right, we've got all these flaps, all the spikes done on the legs. Now we are almost done with the legs. We have a little bit more to do. You might be wondering, Boyce, what are we doing with these things? These are the knee guards. So it's going to really help us define the knee with shaping. And that's why there's a whole extra unit here. So we can get a little bit 3D and move it around. Now, I actually have not folded this before, right? So I don't exactly know what we're going to do with it, but there is enough space where if we wanted to swivel it diagonally, we can swivel it a whole 180 degrees. With some little tricky transitions. We'll have to see and try to come up with a cool pattern, but that will be in the shaping tutorial, and I'll probably have to figure something out. But let's get done with the last few things. So I'm actually going to flip our paper over and we can zoom out. Now you can see where we've widened the leg on the front. We can actually widen it in the back, and it's going to help us with, again, shaping it closed or 3D. So I can just valley fold this outer flap like this. And because we actually have this extra flap here, I'm thinking we might just want to transition it here for now and then later transition it after we deal with this whole thing. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out. So we are just going to unfold and use this 2-unit flap here to swivel fold it, and the swivel fold just happens naturally if you fold it closed like this. And then the same thing on this side is we just open up and it's going to squash fold here. And this is kind of like a 2-staged thing, because now when we have this, we've got this awkward bit here. But instead of that, or actually maybe don't squash this for now. We're just going to, oh yeah, no, that's right. We squash fold it here. We have the option of like doing this weird squash fold up here, but I think honestly I just tucked this corner in, and I'm not sure if we even use it too much. We could try later on for some sort of detail, but this will just square off our leg, make it wider on both sides. So we'll just keep it simple for now and do that. Same thing on the other leg, pulling it out, getting it to swivel on this hinge here, like that. And then over here, we're gonna squash fold like this. Tuck this in like that. And now we have kind of like a closed leg. For now, it's kind of shaped differently. It's not exactly like that. But here we have that sort of progress. So we are now done with the legs, and we're ready to move on to the next part, which is going to be the arms. So let's take a quick look at the arms. I'm gonna pull it over to this pre-crease area to see what we have. And for now, we have this bottom section collapsed, but we're going to expand it all the way to the top. I was originally thinking that we might just skip this top area for now until we're ready to collapse the head. But I think we actually can get away with folding the whole thing. And this will be like one big thick, like 3-unit flap that's sticking up in the middle. And we don't have to worry about this yet. We won't collapse any of this yet. It's just going to run throughout the whole model in the middle, and we can deal with it later. It's kind of similar to how this one will work. We're going to do just this structure and skip the entire middle area for now until we're ready. So it is a little tricky, but I think we're gonna try. The hardest part, I think, will be getting this middle flap to lay down correctly as we're collapsing. So this section right here. So just be aware of this. And then as we're collapsing, we don't need to collapse the fingers yet. So we're just treating these ridges like this. That'll keep it a little bit more simple. So let's try this out, see what happens. And hopefully it's not too hard. All right. So here we have our model with, right now it's a 3-unit flap, but we're going to be expanding it into the arm. And so we are just going to unfold a little bit of it just so we can find where our creases are. And I'm going to adjust it here so we can see. So we added some creases initially that run down through here. These are the ones that aren't going to exist. If we look carefully right here, I can actually see it right here. This is expanding out to the left, right, instead. So I want to find that's right here. I can see it. All right, so it goes down and then we're going back up. Now, one thing that's a little bit tricky is that our grid in this scenario is not necessarily folded the right direction. We might have to invert some creases. Push this back in. All right, so I've started this, which on our crease pattern is here. Next, I am going to look for this one and go up into here. So if I look down here, instead of it translating that way, it should be able to just continue this way. So I'm expanding the horizontal grid. And if you're confused at which grid lines you're supposed to fold, you can just look at the full crease pattern. All right, so these ones are going horizontal. So that's how you know, like, for example, this pre-crease, which is right over here.
right? And we keep going. Expand the next one like that. And I believe this is where it starts to change. I'm going to unfold a little bit just to spot. Okay, it changes right here. So this actually keeps going. And this begins the start of the middle flap, which is going to be a little bit difficult. I think I have a decent way to get us to fold this without it being too painful. And what that's going to look like, and on the crease pattern, it's right here, right? So we notice how there's a mountain fold here and it starts to go past and then it alternates. For now, before it's collapsed, we're just going to have this whole thing as mountain. So as you can see, that's already what it's like. The whole thing here is mountain. And I can free this a little bit. This is where my pre-creases are. And because I keep it all as mountain, that lets us hold this whole layer together, not really worry about it for now. Later on, the pleats will stack on top of this, but we're just trying to get everything else ready. And that's because on the other side, it goes out this way, I believe. Yep, so it goes out this way into this flap. And what I want to do before I collapse this is actually find where this flap ends. So it goes here and then it goes up to 4. It's right over here. And since we're not going past that anymore for now, I'm going to add a mountain fold through all the layers right at that point. Like this, because that's what's going to happen through the whole model. Now I'm going to start correcting these pleats on this side. So like this, and this is going to run further through the model. I think we can actually spot our next pre-creases, which are like right over here. Right, and then because we have that mountain fold added, right, it goes something like this and collapses its way down here. And in order to do that, I need to fix some more of my grid lines. So this one needs to be mountain. By having that one mountain, the one between it will be valley, which I think I can just fold by collapsing it. Like that. Right, we're almost closed, but we do have this guy sticking out here, which is going to cause some problems, but that's okay. So again, we're just focused on getting the grid in the right direction. And then we'll stack them up after that. So now that this is mountain, I can fold it into that, but I don't want to lose it. So in order to get back, I just refold this, which expands, but I'm one by one slowly collapsing it this way. I think that gives us the opportunity to fold a little bit more around here, which I can do. This is the start of the fingers. And the fingers, I didn't even pre-crease the diamonds on the outside. I only did like that. So we can keep this all collapsed. And I've used these fingers a lot in models, like in my sword and shield tutorial, so these are not new. That, and then we have another finger here. And this one needs the next layer a grid to be folded out. So let's do that. Let's get the grid folded the right direction first. You can see it's going all the way down now. Now we're folding along our pre-creases for the fingers. And now this has to be a little bit cleaner on this over here. So basically it's like one thing at a time. And the more correct you can keep a section, the easier it'll be to do the next. So now that we have this edge area all good, we can complete the collapse on this side. And it can push into itself over here. And if you need to, if you have a small clip, you can like clip this together. That might make it a little easier. Like this. Now notice I'm not clipping the top, just in case if the clip is too strong, you don't want to rip the top. So I'm only clipping layers that are in between in order to hold it in place. But because some people don't have clips, I'm just going to not use the clip to show that you don't really need it, but it is helpful. Okay, so we can keep going. Now, if I scoot the crease pattern, we're like about here now. So we can see this section right here, which is this. And this is the top end of that crease we just did, which again is going to be a little bit weird. So I think what we can do is we can finish this mountain fold. So this mountain fold is the one that goes all the way across like this. We can finish this mountain fold. Like I had to invert it a little bit, right? But it needs to sit nicely with this section, the start of the V, which is valley fold. So let me show you how to do that. I'm just going to collapse the finger section first on the very edge. That way we have some reference to what's going on. So we can't valley fold this on top of this one, otherwise it like will intersect and be all weird. So instead, what we're going to do is right now the paper is like curving, right? We want to lean into that curve. So I'm actually going to hold the model like this, where I'm squeezing like the head area close to the legs. And that sets us in the right direction here to be able to now crease this area like this and let it collapse, where we can actually start to hold onto that flap. And the reason that's important is because this is how we're going to like hide it away for a moment in order to get the rest of the collapse. Now you'll feel that this area is a lot thicker than the one we just did. So in order to even that out, let's actually take one layer from the thicker side or the bottom side and just wrap it on top of the other one. We're just adjusting the layer to this side, which is basically just making the valley fold go on this side, and you can even reach underneath, make sure it doesn't get stuck anywhere. Okay, like that, and that's a little bit more even. And the concept of doing it like this is now, once we collapse a little bit more, we'll be able to fold that flap down and then valley fold along through it, and it's gonna hide it into the flaps. We're gonna pull it out later to shape, but for the collapse, it'll help it stay flat. So let's keep that there for now. We need to keep going along the top a little bit. So the top that I'm referring to is this area. And basically once we finish this area, we'll be able to collapse that whole area very nicely. So we have just a few creases here on the grid to invert to make it easier to collapse. So there's this mountain fold. Let's see if we can just get away with doing that one. again, to collapse this, I'm holding this area, which is that mountain fold we did earlier through all those layers. Now you can probably really see how much it's helping us to have something to grab onto in order to collapse. Now it goes up to here and back down. And it's getting close to that middle flap, which we may need. Again, I'm gonna hold it in this orientation for now to keep it together so it's a little bit easier to collapse. Now we've done here, but basically if I hold it like this, I've accidentally added a crease that connects these two. We don't want that to happen. So we have to start the collapse upwards. But I'm wondering if we can just get away with not worrying about that for now. I think maybe we should worry about it. So let's find it on our crease pattern. So here's our fold. This is the one we accidentally added. We don't want to add that. So in order to do that, I need to go along the one that goes out to the right. So that is these two. And then on the left, this makes a 1 unit flap out to the side this way. So towards the hand, you can see these pre-creases. It goes like this way, and then back down. Which to really help us, we just need to invert this grid right here. And this will let us follow our pre-creases like this. So that's that 1 unit flap that my mouse is hovering over. And then next to it is this section which helps stretch the rest of the collapse, which now we can see more of our pre-creases go out up to the side and out up to here. So let's go ahead and do that. So most of the folding here will just be, again, reversing the grid to go the right direction. And following our pre-creases. On the left, we have another 2 unit flap this time. So it goes up to here before coming back down. You can see it in my pre-creases. You can see how it just popped up like that. And on this side, we have flaps going up to here. And this is just like before, where we did a mountain fold right here, and it made it a lot easier. We're going to add another one at this point, which on our crease pattern is this point right here. So I can see it tucked in there. And so to make it easier, this is where the grid unit is supposed to be at. I'm going to add a mountain fold like this. And that will help us to collapse the rest of this unit, which we're really close to being done with. Really, really close. Now, because we've got 2 of these mountain folds, to make it a little bit easier, right around the middle, we can just like insert a valley fold. Not like a hard valley fold, but just something out of the way. And that's if the paper is getting stuck. But I think we can just go from here and we can see the rest of our pre-creases. They all should converge together towards the center here. I think I should invert this grid line a little bit better. It's a little bit off from what it should be. Okay, there you go. I've corrected that one. And that's letting my collapse be nicer. I'll clean up this one. Just like this. And now that we have all of this collapsed, the last thing to do is to finally figure out this mess, which is the middle flap. And in order for the whole thing to come together, we're going to once again bring the legs and the head area together so we can squeeze this portion together. Like this. We only need 2 units of it. You can see this whole area is trying to fight me. But from this, once we have those 2 units, we're going to valley fold it towards the body like this. And here's the fingers. This is towards the body. And once it's valley folded down, I'm going to valley fold the hand together, which follows the internal creases here. And now that is all tucked away. And we can finish off holding this big flap in the center down like this. And now we will be able to just fix some of the creases in this next area, this next stretch. So there's a little bit of creases that got stuck here, and it's just a matter of fixing the grid a little bit and getting those pre-creases to pop together. And that nicely squeezes together. This nicely squeezes together. And I just have to correct this a little bit more. There we go. And there we have all of our flaps folded together like this into this one hinge right there, right? So we've got this big flap over here. We've got another one up here. And they are all hinging at the top of the torso armor. Now, if you are wondering, what is the purpose of these giant flaps? Well, the 4-unit one, which is this long one right here, right? We have basically 3 long flaps across the body. The very center one will actually invert and form armor for the back. It's going to invert through here and form armor through the back. And then the ones to the side are going to be like part of a cape, ideally. So there is actually a cape in this model, which is the top corners. And so it's there to help it look like it's connecting. I think we might use it for something else, but that's the idea. This 3-unit flap, it's actually going to turn into other flaps. So it's going to be part of the neck and face, as well as shoulder armor for the arms. Shoulder armor that will sit underneath the dragon heads to make it look like the dragon heads are mounted. This 2-unit flap here that we added, again, this is going to stick up and just be kind of a separation for the arm. We have our fingers here, this flap. So we've got the 1-unit flap and a 2-unit flap. These are going to be gauntlets. And the reason it's structured like this is we can make it a little bit wider. And it helps so that when we have all this craziness in shaping the actual arm, we can basically use the thin edge flap to help define like a arm gauntlet. Yeah, otherwise it'll look kind of trapped in there. But see, this is about the length of the arm. So ideally we can do all of these shapings around it without having to shorten the arm too much. But yeah, that's the idea. It's kind of a crazy structure, but at least this claps worked. This is the first time I'm doing it too. So if you made it this far, very good. We're going to do the same thing on the other side.
And we are back. Now we've done both arms here, and they're going to be something like this. But I think that before we continue, we should actually just get the torso done and out of the way. That way, I think after we do everything else, it's going to get a little bit more difficult to clasp this. So while it's still, relatively clean, we can go ahead and do that. So the torso is very similar or exactly the same as the assassin. So let's get to that, and it's not too bad. So the key parts is starting at the top. We're doing this kind of spread thing. It's similar to what we did with, or it's actually the exact same as what we did with the legs. And I guess we can actually just do both at the same time, where we're first opening up that layer, right? So remember how we pinched the four sides. We can do it on this side too. So this flap is separated after you unravel it a little bit. And then from here, we're going to do the square twists. Now these we pre-creased, so that's just to make it a little bit easier to get it precise. So if you need to use this pre-crease as reference, I definitely recommend it. And even as I'm doing a square twist, I'm feeling where the pre-creases are so I can align it. And that will at least guarantee that this one is clean because we're going to be using it. All right, and then here, same thing. Just like this. Like that. And it needs to be a little bit more pointy. I messed this one up a little bit. There you go. Sorry, I was getting blocked, but just that square twist. Mine's not the cleanest, but that's okay. It's good enough for now. We are also going to, you'll notice we have this like extra flap here, and that was caused from what we did with the legs. Let's have all that folded down for now. And you'll notice we actually have a pleat right here. And we need to do the same thing on this pleat down here. In this case, it might be easier just to press in the square twist from this spot. Not really square twist it, but just use the pre-creases that we have to collapse it. Just because there's a lot of other stuff going on. So basically with this pre-creases, it's kind of like a sink fold. And once you've, push it all to the side, you can place the pleat back in the layer and let it fold down. That might be the easier way to get it done. A little bit less precise, but that's okay. And same thing on the other side. It's relying on the pre-creases a little bit more. Like that. Once it sits together, put the pleat back like this. And again, if you need to see this in a little bit more detail, you can check the other tutorial. It's the exact same, but I'm just assuming you know how to do that already, and we're going to go a little bit faster. All right, so we have that done. Now the next thing we're going to do is, you can notice if I fold this one up and maybe fold this one out of the way like this, we have freed the layer right here. And here we can fold it in half like this into itself. And we are going to do an open sink after this pre-crease. And this is what gets us those smaller internal diamonds like that. But I'm going to pre-crease both sides first just to have both done. That way we don't have to redo this again. So I'm getting that out of the way. Let's pre-crease this like this. I don't want to like squeeze the arm, so I'm just going to pre-crease it in the air. There you go. So I've pre-creased it like that. Pull the layers back to normal. Now we're going to open sync. So let's start with this one. We kind of have to reach a little bit onto the inside, and this is why we're doing this now, not later. That way we can access this area and open sync it. It's not too hard of an open sync, it's just there's a lot of things in the way. Still try to get it as precise as you can. A lot of times what you're watching me do is I'm closing up the top end, then adjusting it back according to creases, and then same thing on bottom, adjusting the bottom end so it's clean, and then reclosing those creases. And that way, when we put everything back, it's generally pretty good. I have like one extra crease that formed on the bottom, but that's okay. All right, we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Open sync. The top part good. So I can close up again. There we go. And then the bottom part. All right, that looks good. Close down the top. So here you can see a little bit of the structure, right? So now on these internal ones here, we need to do the square twists that we did on the legs. So go ahead and do those. I'll show it really quick. So not too difficult, but what you want to do is, again, free the layer, just like we did before. Now this area might feel a little bit tighter because there's, again, just a lot going on, but it's okay. Let's do this one at a time. It's one side and we'll do the other. Okay, so we had the layer free, and I lost a little bit of precision on this side, so I'm going to fix it before I continue. Basically, it just started to stretch this bottom layer too. It wasn't supposed to. I'm going to try to close that up along the pleat. Okay, there you go. I've put it back where it should be. And while I'm doing that, it already started the sequence for the square twist. So let's get that. Sorry, the flap is in the way, but like that, right? This is the exact same thing we've done many times already. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Y'all should be pretty familiar with this. There we go. That is the other side. Trying to make it a little bit cleaner. That's one. And now we just have one more on the bottom down here. So that's freeing the layer. Then we have the square twist. Now, I had to pull some of the bottom out of the way just to get this square twist, but don't worry, just move it out of the way for now, temporarily, and then when you fold it back, everything will be okay. Like that. We got one more on this side. Again, kind of have to move some stuff out of the way in order for it to open all the way. Like this. And that's our square twist right there. I know I was blocking it most of the time, but again, I think you guys got it. Okay, fold that back up. Fold it down. And there we have our spikes. All right, so now that we have these diamonds done, the next thing we need to do is fold the spikes here and then get the level shifters out. So let's get these spikes first. It's not too difficult. Now, one thing we want to do actually before we go about this is the bottom ones are fine, but there's like, I think if I remember correctly, we might get locked in the top here. So in order to not get locked, when you go to the inside of the paper, let's see if I can show this. On the top here, this layer, so this layer is basically right underneath this. What you're going to want to do is add a tiny reverse fold. And I'm going to use tweezers for this so my fingers don't block what I'm doing. It's just like a little reverse fold like this. And then close it up. I think that's what helps it not get stuck or something like that. Again, you can check the original video first. But, you know, maybe you don't have to do that. Maybe you do. Let me just do that for both sides just
just in case I'm remembering correctly. But I think this helps a little bit. Might not be necessary, but it might be at the same time. Okay, so got that out of the way, and also on the crease pattern. Let me just zoom where we are. We're right in the center. A lot of craziness, but it's not too difficult to fold. Okay, and let's begin the spikes. So start on this side first. And I'm going to do these quickly because it's the exact same as with the legs, just in the center. So we've got that, and then push it in. These ones require a little bit more dexterity just because there's a lot going on. Oh, maybe it was this one that we needed to unblock. Well, in this case, we can just crease it a little bit further. I don't think it's actually blocked. So we just had to fold through. There's like an extra layer that's here, but we just folded through it. Not too big of a deal. And we got 2 more of these. All right. Got one more up here. And I think what that does is it allows us to get this swivel towards the top. I can't remember why exactly. I can kind of visualize the internal structure that it would be pulling out strangely if we didn't have this. So that's all 3 spikes. I could make them like a little bit cleaner, so I might go back and clean them up. But there they are. And why don't you go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. And we are now done with the spikes for the torso. We've got this cool pattern going on. And now we're going to do the level shifters. So the level shifters are the layer to the outside of our swivel transition unit here. So that is over here. And I did have us pre-crease these. So you can see the top one is right here. And then the other one is under the layer, so you can't see it. But essentially all we need to do to start is I'm going to use my hand on the inside to pop open this layer so that we can start converting it into a mountain fold. Now, as we go up into this transition, this one is actually not like inside a layer. The level shifter is on top of the layer. So we can pop this out fully to convert it. And so again, we are converting this from a valley to a mountain fold. So let's prioritize that. And then along the pre-creases here, we can just fold these as mountain folds. And when we do that, it's going to close up the inside here. And so essentially this becomes mountain fold. And the tabs fold over each other like this. And that becomes our level shifter. Like that. Now on the other side here, we have a level shifter that is on the inside. So we have our pleat running here. The parts below the pleat, you push down, And if we look underneath, we can see that's where the level shifter is. It's kind of hard to see from here, so I like to look on the inside, and then from the inside, if the paper doesn't get in the way, we can find our pre-creases for the level shifter, which are right here and right up there. It still might be hard to see on camera, but you should be able to find it on the paper. Also, this should be very easy for you to do if you've done, I think, literally the second class in the crease pattern class. So go ahead and do that. You can look at it from both sides to make it clean. So see, it's right there. I'm going to pop it back in according to the creases, pre-creases. Get the grid in order. And then collapse it back together. Just like that. And so there we have the level shifters done. Now, to finish it off, we are also going to stretch it so that we get that pleat or that spike, but we only have one set of pleats here. So what we're going to do is stretch this way. And just like the spikes we did on the small one, we're going to start from up here, and it's going to actually fold this behind. Sorry, I folded it the wrong way. It's going to fold this way behind. I was like, wait a second. All right, so it's going to fold like this. So I'm making a mountain fold from the tip down to the area that we pulled out. And then we push it back into the pleat just like we've done before. Close it back up. I think I can push it in like a little bit further. So it'll close properly, right? And so we have a spike here. For the bottom one, we just have to make a mountain fold that runs from the corner to that corner. Just like this. I know, easy, right? Just a mountain fold. And that gives us that shape, like that. And we have one side done. Let me quickly show you the other side. I'll try to speed run this so you can see. So this is where our level shifter should be. You can actually, let me do the bottom one first. I think it's pretty easy to get done. Just like that. Oh, wrong, sorry. That's a wrong grid unit. Just like that. There's our pre-creases. There's the bottom. Now we just have the top, which I can just pop out like this. Make mountain folds along level shifter there. Let it fold over itself like this. Then that makes it like that. Becomes our level shifter like this. Now we have the spikes. So we pull this out. Close like this. Make a mountain fold from the corner to the area we pulled out. And then tuck that back in.
close it up, and then just make a mountain fold along this. And I'm cleaning up the level shifter just a little bit so it doesn't peek out in an unwanted way. And then same thing, corner to corner down here. Just mountain fold it behind. And when you mountain fold behind, you can just keep it between the layers. And if the layers stay closed, it kind of keeps it in place. And there we have the torso of the Dragon King done. And now what we have, we can just get a quick view of what's going on here. It can almost fit on the screen, not quite, but we have the torso, we have the legs done, and we have the arms over here. Just like that. All right, it's looking pretty good. I know the hands are looking a little short, but what we're going to do later is after we figure out and collapse these areas, it's going to allow it to like swing and swivel outwards a little bit. And the hips are actually hinged up here, right? So it's hanging down a little bit, but it's going to be up here. So the fingertips are actually around mid-thigh when they're neutral. And if you test on yourself, that's about where your fingers should line up to. So that should work out perfectly. If anything, we can stretch it out a little bit in shaping, but this is looking pretty good so far. I think the last thing we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to split up this into 2 parts for the collapse. Basically, we've done the bottom half and then the top half, just to keep the timings a little bit okay. But we're going to do the fingers, not the full fingers, but just the finger structures here. And I'm doing this so that the first collapse tutorial isn't too long, and so that people are not waiting too long to start working on this. If you are folding this in the future and the whole tutorial is out, then you just have the next collapse tutorial to do. So I think this is fine to split it up into 2 videos. But the first thing we're going to do is we have our 3 fingers here, right? And I am just squash folding or reverse folding these parts in at the tip of the fingers that we haven't collapsed yet. And this is so that we can pre-crease them. Basically on our crease pattern, if I scroll over, right, we are pre-creasing the edge diamonds like this. That's all it really is. And I prefer to do it after collapse because, again, there's no point in doing it before the collapse when we can just easily do reverse folds like that. So now I'm going to unfold it. And then we can collapse these, and we collapse them by pulling on the edge layer. So I'm going to find the edge layer here. And then I am going to kind of unwrap from the edge of the fingers. So I'm opening the paper so I can actually unwrap this without worrying about ripping the paper. Right, so just be careful. Like this. And then popping up where now we can see that on the pre-crease, it's like an X, right? You see that X. And along these diagonals, it's all going to be mountain fold. So you can start converting them to mountain fold. And that basically treats it like a consecutive reverse fold when you collapse it. So after you make those all mountain fold, right? Or they're like the tops of water bomb bases. So you can actually just try to collapse these as those water bomb bases. And what you'll get is something like this, where we have some of the edge sticking out. We also have the points defined. And I need to fix this bottom one a little bit more. Make sure it's on the creases. There you go. Looks something like that, right? And then as we close it up as much as we can, kind of have this going on. And from here, we can still see those recreases. We can just pedal fold.
On the side, this one's already collapsed, so we just pedal fold this one. All right, and then we don't want our fingers, like, I don't know if you can see on mine, but the layers are kind of overlapping each other. That kind of makes it a little bit hard to work with, so I'm just evening out the creases, even if that means being a little bit imprecise, just so they have a gap. And then on the back here, it's also doing the same thing. So that's just the paper getting stuck. And so I'm going to adjust the crease a little bit so the paper doesn't get stuck inside of itself. There you go, just like that. And if you've folded the assassin before, you probably know what comes next. If you want to do that now, you can go for it, but we're going to wait for the second tutorial to do that. That'll probably be the last thing we do in the second tutorial. And for now, we're just going to work on the fingers. Now we have this other section over here. This is for the gauntlet. Make sure you don't do that same squash fold or reverse fold pre-crease on those. That is not part of the fingers. All right. Just like this. Other side, this is the pre-creasing. Now we do the unwrap. Here's the unwrap. And then now we have these pre-creases again, which we turn to mountain. Which lets us collapse them like water bomb bases. This one is stuck. So I'm going to reach underneath it to pop it open. There you go. And now we just pedal fold the remainder up. And there we have the second hand. All right. So that's all looking pretty good. And we are going to call it there for today. I'm just going to do a quick overview on what's going to happen. So we have the legs, we have the waistcoat, we have front and back, we have the torso here. We've got our arms. We have this, which will actually, part of it will go to the back and invert, and then the other parts of it will attach as part of the cape, ideally. We have this area, which becomes more armor, and for the head, the start of the head flaps, which then is also used by this for a lot of the head flaps and the cool helmet with the horns. And also in here will be the shoulder armor, which has the dragon heads in there. And so that will be the main part of the next tutorial, is doing those dragon heads, as well as the cape area, which will be in the corner.
and cover up more of the shoulders and the back. So we have a very exciting second part of the collapse tutorial coming up. Thank you for watching this part of the tutorial. And if you made it this far, honestly, we've done quite a lot. So good job making it through. There's lots to do. And I think shaping this will be a lot of fun. So thanks for enjoying. Consider joining the OBB membership to help support the channel, as well as getting some benefits like extra origami help, as well as some behind the scenes and exclusive crease patterns. But I will see you in the next tutorial.
All this origami, all this origami, all this origami got me going kamikaze now.